If you keep up with MMA news or you watch my channel this past week, you are very much in the know about Jon Jones's current situation. Now, if you're not one of those two things and you need a little bit of an update, many people's greatest MMA fighter of all time, Jon Jones, former light heavyweight champion and now former heavyweight champion, retired officially. He's out of the UFC testing pool. He's off the roster. It's officially over for Jon Jones's MMA career. The same day that Dana White announced that Jon Jones was retired and that Tom Aspinall was the new champion, a new criminal charge from Albuquerque, New Mexico, implicating Jon Jones in a drunk driving accident where he fled the scene on foot. A Jon Jones classic, all right? Since then, we've done a couple of different videos. We talked about that entire charge, and then the next day, the body cam footage dropped, so we did that. And now, I've done a little bit of digging, and we have more to talk about, okay? We'll start off with this, though. Jon Jones has spoken up in a now deleted tweet. He said, "Whoever was on the phone with me at first, his timestamp is different. By the time I was acting aggressive on the phone, it was a completely different conversation. I was already in my paranoid and defensive state." Something that I wanted to point out is that in that original video of the body cam, Jon Jones was talking about like the government and stuff like that, while this lady's literally sitting there with a wrecked car talking to police. Jon Jones literally could be schizophrenic. Like, I have no idea. Maybe he's gotten hit in the head so many times that the guy we see on TV where he just beat Stipe Miocic and he says, "I just want to take this moment to talk about Jesus Christ." And then this type of guy that drinks and drives with a woman in the car that's half naked, that's not his fiance, wife, baby mom, whatever you want to say. These are two different people. I think Jon Jones is literally schizophrenic. That's just my opinion. Or maybe it's CTE-induced multiple personality disorder. I know I'm making some bold claims here, but I've been following the Jon Jones story for a long time now. Now, I did some digging. Jon Jones may have, I suspect, been live on Instagram walking home on foot after crashing this woman's car. Now, this is a live video from February. MMA page on Instagram that I love, Tony Has Died, says, "You guys remember this live from February? Well, police allege Jones fled the scene of a February 24th accident involving an intoxicated, partially unclothed passenger, passed her phone, blah, blah, blah." We talked about that. Jon Jones was threatening violence and, fatality, I guess I should say is the way to say it on YouTube, to the police officer. But this is Jon Jones on Instagram Live back in February. This very well could have been him walking home from this accident.
You get pissed off, disappointed. And as a dad, you just want to kill him.
Interesting. Almost as though he thought he was on FaceTime or he was trying to take a Snapchat or something like that and then realized he was live. Let me play that again. It's eerie because he sounds drunk. And he's talking about killing somebody. He says, "Another day you wake up and you just want to kill."
You get pissed off, disappointed. And as a dad, you just want to kill him.
So there it is, Jon Jones saying another day, angry, disappointed, you wake up and you just want to kill. Holy shit, that's dark. Especially considering the context of what he was walking home from. I've beat this horse over and over about Jon Jones, and I literally still have people defending him in my comments, but DC was right all along. Throwing back all the way to this video of when Rogan did a face-to-face interview with DC and Jon Jones. I mean, like this comment says right here, DC did win the war. He didn't win the fights against Jon Jones, but he's the guy with a family intact, not going to prison, not failing drug tests. And DC says this right to his face. Watch.
Tell him some sobering truth.
Please.
Sobering truth is his history dictates and determines that the same thing is going to happen. That is his character. That is him at his core. I look at that young lady, the PR lady that's on his team now, and I see in her eyes, she knows she's fighting a losing battle. I look at his coaches. I see that these guys know that this kid will not change. He will not change. He's the same guy. He's rotten at his core, and he will continue to up.
Don't you think that people can learn from their mistakes?
Mistakes? Mistakes. You don't constantly make mistakes.
No?
You make mistakes, but you don't do them over and over and over and over. No,
says who?
You don't do that. If
Says
you
who?
know when you make a mistake, it changes you. You try to make yourself better.
Not necessarily.
And this is, many times we've heard this speech. John, this isn't the first time you've told us this.
No, absolutely. You know what?
This isn't the first time you've told us that. So how am I supposed to believe this guy? I don't need to actually. I actually give two if Jon Jones is in jail. I can give two. I just don't want anything life-threatening to happen to him.
Hindsight's obviously 2020, but goddamn, DC was cooking. And you see how in this interview, he says, you know, you don't make mistakes over and over again, which isn't necessarily true. People make mistakes a lot of times. But what DC was trying to say is that you don't make the same mistake over and over again. It's not a mistake at that point. It's a habit. It's a decision that you're making, which I understand. In the heat of the moment, he didn't explain that very clearly. But in my eyes, that's what I was hearing, was basically saying you've done the same shit over and over and over again. You're not a changed man. These aren't mistakes. This is you being a bad person making bad choices. And of course, Jon Jones kind of picked up on the little bit of holes in that sentence that DC said. And he goes, no, says who? And that's like, you know, the straw man fallacy of misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to attack. I mean, Jon Jones does that a lot. Dana White does it too. It's a PR 101 type of lesson, is misrepresent their argument, so then it's easier to discredit, you know? Jon Jones is literally the worst human being in UFC history, maybe in combat sports history. I'm sure there's some I know there's War Machine. Some of you guys were mentioning War Machine in my comments, and a couple other fighters with really bad domestic charges and violent charges. I understand, okay? But this is talking about the implications of this being the GOAT of the sport that Dana White propped up for a year. Like, the UFC has put so much time and effort into the last 15 to actually fucking 25 years now, since like 2000, to make the sport not taboo, to make the sport not human cockfighting. Dana used to say, these guys have college degrees, they're this, they're that. They were doing accounting before they started fighting to make them seem like normal, civilized, smart people. And when the GOAT of your sport is a degenerate, alcoholic, woman abusing, car crashing, liar, schizophrenic liar. I mean, for real. Like, let's call a spade here. Enough's enough. I don't even dislike Jon Jones. I don't fucking know him. Speaking as where I am in this chair, as someone that talks about the MMA industry, I have to be honest about what I'm seeing, because at the end of the day, I have a similar take about Jon Jones to DC. I don't give a fucking rat's ass about him. But the reason I do care about the bad things he does is because he's misrepresenting our sport that has tried so long to be mainstream, to be accepted in there with like football, baseball, basketball, hockey, all that shit. And he has victims. He's crashing cars. He's beating women. He's cheating with steroids and fighting other fighters in a life-threatening MMA fight type of situation. But hey, he's just trying to be the best he can. He's just trying to be the best he can. Good riddance, dude. And then we have McGregor as the other representation of our sport, who can't go more than like 6 months without either knocking out a random person in the club or sexually assaulting somebody, or at the very least getting accused of it, you know? And I know there's the argument as, oh, you know, they're in high places, they have money, they have fame, they're famous athletes. People are going to accuse them of things that aren't true. That's absolutely true. But when you're at the point of like Jon Jones and McGregor, where things are getting thrown all over the place all the time, it's hard not to believe some of it. It's hard not to believe that partially some of these are true, terrible things that are true. You never see Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a fucking massive name. You never see his name come up in a car crash situation, something like that. I mean, that's a big name, I know. But one thing is that Jon Jones, over and over again, the same type of behavior, the same behavior he had 10 years ago. Fleeing on foot after DUI crashing a car. They're not mistakes, they're choices. And at this point, it's like, yeah, you're a piece of shit, Jon Jones. But this is probably the last video that I'm going to do about this Jon Jones saga this week. There's just, there's a little bit more to add. Jon Jones live on Instagram right after crashing a car, talking about killing somebody. So let me know your thoughts down below. I'm Wyatt. This is Fight Society.